Good morning. Today here at VIV trade show in Utrecht in the Netherlands. Today we've got a special guest, which is Professor Dr. Bas Rodenburg. And Dr. Rodenburg is a professional in animal welfare at the University of Utrecht here in this city. And Dr. Rodenburg is in a special position, also responsible as a project coordinator for a project named Best Practice Hens, which is a European initiative. And we have published an article on this topic, Bas, and we can read all about it, but it might even be better if you start explaining to us what is the for what reason this initiative was taken and what the objectives are. But first, what was the reason for initiating this project?
Yeah, I'm happy to tell a bit more about that. So what you see at the moment in Europe is that there's an increase in the number of farms switching to cage-free systems for laying hens. But there's quite some variation between countries in Europe regarding the percentage of farms that's already moved to cage-free systems. And especially in Southern and Eastern Europe, there's still the majority of hens in cage systems. And the European Commission proposed this project to also help farmers in countries that still have a low percentage of farms switch to cage-free, to provide them with advice and best practices to make the transition, and also to base this on the knowledge that's already there in countries where, like the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, where already the majority of the hens is in cage-free systems.
Yeah, okay, so if I understand you well, they're all producing eggs according to the legal situation in Europe, but it could even be better.
Yeah, so the legal minimum in Europe is the furnished cage at this moment. But you can see in the egg market that many large catering businesses and large food producers are switching to cage-free eggs for their products. So the demand for cage-free eggs is growing, and that's all around Europe. You see that also in the Spanish or the Polish egg market, that this demand is growing. So there, the industry is under increasing pressure to switch to cage-free, and this project aims to provide some extra help, some extra knowledge to make this transition feasible. Yeah.
So the producers should fulfill the demands of the consumer, more or less.
Yeah. But we also try to link to local situations. So we have a number of target countries where we will have dissemination activities, and there we also try to really fit to the local conditions. For instance, in Spain, in Poland, in Portugal. Also to see what is feasible there. Is it a switch from cage to indoor aviary systems, or is it a switch to free range and organic systems? And that might depend on the country and even the region in the country. So we're not only sort of sending information from the cage-free countries to the target countries, but we're also talking to the local industry and policymakers and NGOs to see what the local demands are and the local perspectives are, so that we can also provide really targeted information.
Okay, how many parties are involved in this project? How many countries or organizations? Or
in total we have 7 partners from knowledge institutes involved in the consortium, from both from the target countries and from the cage-free countries. We also have a stakeholder advisory board made up of the European, the farmers organization, the NGOs, the producers, the egg producers organizations, so that we also get input at EU level regarding the direction we are moving into and the focus of the project. And through our local partners, we try to link to the local industry and also to see what's, how can we make the most smooth transition in that country, and also involve them, for instance, by getting access to local farmer magazines, really to reach the grassroots level, and also to provide information in such a way that it's useful, that you don't give a farmer a huge book that he has to read through, which probably will not happen. So also think about practical ways, best practices presented by farmers from Germany or Denmark or the Netherlands, or even Spanish farmers that already made the transition, where the farmers can visit and see what's possible. That's probably the best way to convey the information.
Do you consider connecting them to each other, like say Dutch farmers with Spanish farmers, one-to-one, or
that's also an option? But we also have to think about for instance, the avian influenza situation. How feasible will that be in the coming years? So we also think about virtual farm visits or videos, testimonials.
All options that are available. Who is financing this entire project?
So this is funded by the European Union. Also because they see there's a lot of information available and a lot of knowledge available, but it's not really always reaching the producers, the farmers, and the companies advising the farmers. So it's also a way of making this more readily available through one website, linking to different materials in different languages. That if you want to make, as a farmer, the transition to cage-free, that you can get relatively easy access to this information and also get access to a network of experts who can advise you.
Okay. Have you got the idea that farmers in those target countries are willing to accept the new standards or better standards?
I think they are, and part of that is of course also related to the market. If the market is demanding for eggs from cage-free systems, then already the economic side is covered. Of course they need to also see that it's economically feasible to make the transition, so that also depends on egg prices and feed prices, and at the moment of course that's a big challenge with the situation in Ukraine. But
suppose they have invested in a system that is meeting the legislation in Europe, and it's say about 6 or 7 years old. Will they be forced to eventually invest in new systems or in better systems?
Yeah, in the EU there's always also attention for like transition periods, so that people who have invested in systems, for instance the furnace cage, when it would now be banned, there would be a time limit, so that farmers can still use their equipment to the end of its economic life usually. And that's something you have to take into account also when looking at farmers and their situation and proposing a transition. Then it also should be economically feasible, of course. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So we also have a work package on economics. So there we also have advice on sort of the production costs in each system, also the extra money you get for eggs from cage-free system. How does that balance out, and is it feasible in your situation? Because we're also, for us, it's also clear that economics are one of the main drivers, of course.
Of course, it is. It's all about the money at the end. What was I thinking about? Is there a time frame that you have in mind?
For this project is now launched as a pilot project, so it runs for 2 years. We're now at the end of the first year, and that was mainly about collecting knowledge and starting to develop dissemination materials. So we now have a set of best practices ready, and we're now developing that into practice abstracts and information leaflets. And we start to think about the videos and the presentations in the target countries. So that will be in the second year. And then we have to see with the European Commission whether there's interest to extend the project if they see it's successful. And
within reach.
And the materials will be there in different languages, so also countries that are now not part of the set of target countries could translate it into their language, or also the European Commission could decide to extend the project live.
Okay, sounds good. Could you mention a couple of those best practices? Just
things like inspection rounds by the farmer. How can you do that in a way that you take into account the most important production issues, but also health and welfare issues. So very practical. How can you see whether a flock is having problems with feather packing, for instance? Floor eggs, how can you manage those? So some very practical guidelines for the farmer to train him to work with hens in cage-free systems. Also things like the transition from rearing farm to laying farm, to make this transition as smooth as possible, to make sure that hens, the pullets are already trained in going up in the system and finding their way in the system.
With limited stress.
Limited stress.
This kind of things. Yeah. So, and the overall objective is to eventually have across Europe every layer farmer practicing the same methods?
Yeah, that's not the main objective, I would say. I think the main objective is to really provide a good knowledge base for farmers that want to make the transition, and also advisors to farmers that are looking for some practical advice. So it's really about helping them if they want to make the transition, that they can do it in a good way, and that they have access to knowledge. And the speed of the transition is in the end also up to the European Union and to the legislation and to the market also. So we are mainly there to provide the knowledge.
Excellent. Good initiative.
Thank you.
Very promising. Thanks for the interview.